many times have you made a decision based on fear, or stayed in a relationship because of insecurity, or stayed in a job because of insecurity, which is the fear of loss? Now, most fear is some form of fear of loss. And I'd say it's one of the biggest limitations that we're born with in this group of limiting distortions or programs that we incarnate with, that we actually agree to in order to fit in to this incredibly limiting 3D life here on Earth. and just and then it gets reinforced as we go through our life. So have you given up on dreams and desires because going forward with them was too frightening? Or have you been paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake and then taken no action, when most of the time making a mistake is a form of course correction? Now, the limiting and largely illusory program of fear goes very deep. And as I say, we agree to this distortion prior to incarnation, but it, of course, doesn't stop there. It's continuously reinforced by the way our lives are structured. For centuries, it was enforced through religion, a distrust of strangers and of leaving your own community. Now we have more global concerns, with good reason if you believe everything that you're being fed. Now, fear is a strange phenomenon in that it isn't technically a true emotion. It's a state that the majority of the time is an illusion or a delusion. Now, the only time fear is absolutely legitimate in these physical bodies, of course, is in its basic biological function to warn us of impending danger. But so many of us are in a perpetual state of fear that has gone beyond the biological function of keeping us safe. A state of anxiety where alarms go off in our body and emotions, worrying about something that might happen. And this actually has the opposite effect, in that the constant reactions and alarms and being triggered actually wears down not just our physical functions and our health and threatens our well-being and even our life if ill health becomes serious, but we lose the ability to intuitively, immediately know when we're in danger. So many things can be avoided if we trust that almost sixth sense of fear. Because here's a fascinating fact about the deep psyche function of fear. The warning of imminent danger is registered seconds before the mind actually perceives danger. So we can have a deep intuitive ability to know if we are in danger. It's in the eternal now moment function, and this can come from various sources. Our heart field is one of them. Our heart will register something before our mind does. And of course, our extended energy field, where we're picking up on signals. Our higher guidance is another. We can suddenly have just some form of communication about a warning. Or when we don't perceive this, sometimes through other people, odd things can happen that signal things to us. Now, as I've said, most fear is actually a fear of loss. And this is connected to a craving for certainty in life. And this is part of the illusion or the delusion of fear, the illusion of trying to hold on to or control safety and certainty. Now, as we release this and become more aware of self, that is the higher self, our connection to self, our connection to higher and higher realms, and I will go into the illusion of separation as well at some point, the fear of loss gradually diminishes. So as we go through this series on limitations, you might start to see how each limitation feeds into another, though we will dominate in one more than another. Now, if you're busy trying to stay in control or overreacting to non-life-threatening events, we will push away our ability for discernment and our antennae for actual danger. Mostly not even danger, simply the knowing that something will serve us or not, be good for us or not. The mind is only useful for its ability to strategize and take practical action. And when thought is driven by fear, it's usually irrational, and we can end up making very poor decisions. And the sad thing about the almost complete dampening of the primal and useful intuitive fear response is that the underlying tendency of most people to be in a hyper aroused state of worry and impending doom is that we cut off this natural function. By being in a permanent state of anything from subtle underlying fear, tension, to outright anxiety, we actually put ourselves in more danger. So the more we relax, let go of our need for control and for certainty, the less in danger we actually are. And I'm going to go through some ways in this video of where we can begin to let go, to start to dissolve some of this fear reaction. And if you look in the links below, I've put a link to another one of my mini courses on fear and fear of loss, dissolving fear, which includes a meditation for coming into a state of absolute peace, which extends out into protection and a feeling of safety. Now, just going back to that, the non-life-threatening level of being in a perpetual state of fear, worry, and anxiety, we can see one of the ways this plays out in our, as I say, our lack of ability to be discerning. An example would be the sheer amount of scams that are out there about anything. When we're in our natural way of being, free of fear or of desperation born of fear, we instantly, and I mean in a nanosecond, detect when something is not viable. This can also apply to business deals and opportunities, to whether or not a person is right for us romantically or will hurt us in some way, or a job offer that seems amazing, but to accept it might cut off something that is more suited to who we are as a person. There's so many different ways our discernment works. Now, in terms of scams, if everybody trusted their ability to discern by dropping fear, there'd be no scams. The scammers would give up. Now, there's an opposite side to this as well. I've watched people dismiss things that were a good opportunity due to a knee-jerk reaction against the potential of being scammed. This is maybe due to a fear of loss of face or loss of something. So let's look at a key aspect of fear. Let's look at scarcity, loss, the fact that fear is usually a fear of loss of some kind. All fear, if you're frightened financially or desperate, you're easy prey for these scammers or dodgy business deals. And the other aspect of fear of loss is that of being alone. And this can lead to being in soul-sucking or outright damaging relationships. Not just romantically, but friendship, or perhaps staying in a family situation that's emotionally damaging. And of course, there's other underlying issues here as well, but some form of unaddressed fear will be at the baseline of many of these issues. Now, if we go through life seeking security and certainty, this will just lead to more insecurity and more uncertainty. If you feel deeply insecure, worried about something, no amount of physically taking action will rid you of basic insecurity, and life will rearrange itself to mirror back insecurity again. Or it will simply be there in the background of your psyche, gnawing away at you, disturbing your peace of mind, or perhaps your health. Perhaps your health. The opposite of this is trust that all will be well. And we can't just talk ourselves into trusting or say positive affirmations. We have to go deep into ourselves, release the fear of loss, of insecurity, of uncertainty, and go deeper into our heart space and begin to trust from this space that all will be well. Okay, and an aspect of this, one aspect of fear of loss is, as I've said, loss of faith. That the thought of losing something, of being embarrassed or ashamed. And the opposite of this is to be yourself without apology, to be completely authentically you, is a form of letting go of fear as well, the fear of loss. And this is certainly not the way of the world. It's not how we're encouraged to be. We're encouraged to big ourselves up, sell a particular image, appear polished, accomplished together. So, what's the solution to all of this? Or one solution? Awareness is key. Become aware of your triggers. Nothing can trigger you if there isn't already some form of unacknowledged pain, undealt with pain. The more we deny what's there, the greater the fears. We simply keep adding to it, and the more we're triggered. So just take that in. We cannot be triggered if the emotion or the unacknowledged pain is not there to be triggered. It just won't affect you. It'll, like water off a duck's back. And the fastest and most gentle way to melt fear is through the heart, breathing into our heart with compassion for whatever you're experiencing, and all that follows will be easier to do, all that I'm going to go through. So I'm going to go deeper into compassion in another video on dissolving fear. But right now, let's just look at the emotional aspects of dissolving fear, the energetic aspects. Now, remember that dissolving your fears, because we have a bedrock of fear, apart from that initial programming of fear that we're born with. If you take into account that we have many lifetimes where we've been programmed with fear and the layers of that have accumulated, and then there's our ancestral patterning. So we have 7 to 10 generations of genetic patterning from our mother and our father to deal with as well. So that's a lot to deal with in our body, in our psyche, in our emotional field. There's a lot of fear triggers there, and some will have more fear than others. Some people seem to have the largest amount of programming in the fear limitations. So be patient with yourself if this is you. So I say we have deep layers of fear on every level of our being. And of course, the cultural conditioning, the culture is set up to provoke fear. The news is set up to provoke fear. If you feel frightened every time you watch the news, stop watching the news. So much of it is misreported. You can watch different news stations that will have a different bias depending on where it's been shown to, and they will tell you different aspects of the thing you should be frightened of. None of it is entirely true. So simply stop watching. You'll always know what's going on. Okay, so first of all, the number one part of starting to dissolve our fear and coming into a place of safety and peacefulness is similar to how we begin to deal with anxiety, which has its roots in separation. On so many levels of being, fear is some form of separation from self. Self as we are now, self with the big S, our higher aspect of self, our highest divine self, and the even larger self of where we've come from, pure source consciousness. Our disconnection from this ensures that we continue to feel more fear than we need to. So that first fundamental action of dissolving fear is connection, letting go of separation. And on a purely primal and psychological level, this begins at the level of our psyche. And our psyche is the most primitive part of us. It's the part of us that's always on the lookout for danger. So the more we come back to awareness of self in our own presence, into our body, even if it's uncomfortable, because so many of us who have a lot of issues around anything are frightened of coming into the emotions, when in fact, even if the emotions are difficult and unpleasant or painful, this is the safest part of our body to be. Our psyche registers this as safe because we're actually paying attention. And in my first video in this series, I give a link to a meditation where you can begin to dissolve this base level disconnection by walking into the center stage of your life, of being aware in the moment. This begins to dissolve that base level fear. It's a reassurance to our psyche. Now, not in a hypervigilant way, but as a fully functioning, balanced human. And is this how we're conditioned to be? No. We're taught in an intricate and myriad variety of ways to be constantly living outside of ourselves, to be unaware, to be distracted, and most of all, for God's sake, to not allow those pesky, genuine feelings to be felt. So, in a lot of the way of the New Age movement is to cover them up with platitudes, with love and light, with positive thought, with avoidance, with endless talking and analysing and understanding and blaming another. Not just blaming, but seeking justification and approval for blaming another for your feelings. And this is spread out into the world with, oh, I'm triggered by that, I'm offended by that. They're your feelings. If you're triggered or offended, you are the one that's triggered and offended. The more you own that and take responsibility, the more you step into your sovereign self, the powerful self, the empowered self. So it's endless, the need to place all we feel as somebody else's fault. Every time we blame somebody else for how we feel, whether it's right back to our childhood or in the moment, we put ourselves in that powerless position again, which is frightening. And we abdicate responsibility or innate authority. And this increases stress and misery. But I'm not saying this as a judgment or to blame you for how you're feeling or what you're doing. This is the way of the world. The way of the world is to place blame on someone or something else. And it takes discipline, radical honesty, and radical self-responsibility to step out of it. It takes a certain amount of courage as well to not only let yourself not go along with the norm, but to actually speak or just live your truth about self-responsibility, to be authentic. Because this is another truth about fear. When we just do what we're afraid of, step into courage, the illusion of fear disappears. Not right away, we might be doing the thing and feel frightened, but gradually, as we get used to doing something that frightens us or unnerves us, we start to get used to it and fear disappears. And being this new way or doing this new thing becomes easy or normal. So the first way to dissolve fear is awareness. Come back to yourself. And when you fully see yourself, recognize yourself as you are, shadows and all, bad traits and all, it's impossible for another person to truly hurt you. In fact, sometimes it's funny. I've had people insult me and then look almost shocked when I start laughing and say, yeah, I know I'm like that. It just completely disarms somebody. Now, awareness of self is massive and crucial, as all that is all that stems from awareness. And although I'm laying out 4 steps here about beginning to dissolve fear, the first step is the one that most people, even those in the growth industry, have the most problem with. We are emotional creatures. We cannot bypass this. This is the root of so-called spiritual bypassing, the avoidance of self, the condemnation of self for daring to feel ugly emotions, and the fear of negative feelings that are out there, or that we're triggered by something out there into. So the second step, of course, is, it's already in the first step, feel it. Can you allow yourself to feel the fear? After all, trying to push it away or distract yourself doesn't work. Even if it does go away, it'll come back. If that fear is in you, attached to something, an old issue perhaps, it will still be there and it will come back. Now, when we fully release a particular fear, program, issue, thought, belief, it goes away completely. It's gone. Now, fear is felt in several different ways, from outright terror through anxiety, worry, nervousness, procrastination, and avoidance. These are all aspects of fear. Now, and even the deeper way, this tip number 3, is that when we feel fear, we'll tend to, if you just say something, feel the fear, they'll tend to go into their head about it and a story about it and feel the painful emotions. The deeper way to release fear, and a safer and easier way in many, many ways, is to do it somatically. This is through the body, the soma of the body. So you go into your muscle layer and into the energetics of the body and allow the deep programming to surface. So when we come down into the body and deliberately go into certain areas of the body, we begin to release very deep programming, and it's easier to release in this way. We release the programming that we're born with, our ancestral, collective, past life trauma and fears, all of that programming that's there, even on a soul level. Our soul, our immediate soul, not the oversoul, but our immediate soul still holds fears. Not as many as us on this level, but they're certainly there. The layering of this, as I've said, is immense. But when we deal with it somatically, beyond words and conscious thought, beyond understanding, we heal more rapidly. Because trying to deal with fear through the mind, through talking or attempting to understand, is actually worse than useless. If you do this repeatedly, if you're always talking about your worries, for instance, you fix them in place, you give them arms and legs, you increase their potency, make them bigger than you need to be. Now, if you'd like to be led through this process of somatically dealing with fear, of connecting with the self, the body, and those deeper energetic layers of where fear is stored, and especially our ancestral patterning, see the link below for the mini course of dealing or dissolving fear. Now, the fourth aspect, there's many other ways of dealing with fear, but a fourth aspect of dealing with it is about unity and connection, dissolving the fears of loss. So knowing yourself is safe within your being, the being of your highest self. And our journey to the highest self is through the heart. So we can start at the level of the heart, or spiritual heart, or you could say the fourth chakra. Now, there's our higher heart, which is connected a bit higher. It's more towards the thymus gland. Our higher heart is actually the part of us that really connects to highest divine self and to source. But the place we start, before we can really go into our higher heart and fully dissolve fear and connect with self at the highest level, we need to go in through the spiritual heart, the heart chakra, or even the heart itself, as in heart math meditations. Whatever form of meditation you favor, and there are many out there that go into the heart and expand the heart field, is an absolutely brilliant place to start. So when you're in the heart, the more you go into the heart and dissolve fears somatically, you begin to know that you're safe within your being. You connect with the deep peace and stillness of the self at a deep level, and all the way up to your highest self. And the more we inhabit the light of our being, our true self, the more natural it becomes to live without fear, to have trust and faith that all is well and all will be well. And this is not about affirmations or using trite phrases. It's about inhabiting, embodying this light, trusting that the light is there and allowing yourself to fill with this light, opening yourself up to pure source intelligence and realizing your connection to that. Now, if you can find a way of daily filling yourself with this light, the essence of your being, fears will fade away as they cannot withstand pure truth. So when we're working in this double way with fears, one, going into the somatics of the feelings of our fear, and then we're bringing in light, we're dissolving even more fear, because there are some fears we don't have to consciously feel. We can just start dissolving the fears that we've picked up from other people, from the collective, from the programming, because there are fears that we really can't get at ourselves. We need light to begin to dissolve them. And when we shine light on them, they will either dissolve or a deeper fear will come up to be dissolved. And we can use the light to dissolve this. So meditating on the heart, always one of the easiest, most pain-free ways of doing this. Not always pain-free, but certainly more than just trying to go towards your fears through the mind. And the meditation and my mini course on dissolving fear takes you into this field. I take you into the light of the truth of your being in the meditation part of dissolving fear and stepping into peace. So as I said, just another word about the mini course, as I've said, the somatic level of dealing with fears. If you want one more place to go into the body, and I take you through this in the course, but if you're used to working somatically, I would recommend that you take yourself right down into the pelvis area, visceral sense of the body, the lower belly, because we actually store more emotions and feelings partly in our sacral chakra, which is the second chakra, but in this whole area, we tend to store more emotions down here. This is also the area where so many of our ancestral patterning is held. So when we go right down into the lower pelvis and also into our root chakra, because the root chakra is connected to our adrenals, the fear response, when we take your consciousness, your awareness, you can place your hands right down in your lower belly, take yourself right down into here and breathe with the intention of releasing fears. And as I say, there will be layers and layers here, but that's a good place to start in the body. And I wish you all the love and light in the world and going forward in this journey of releasing fear. Because always remember, the more each individual releases the fear that we've been born with and that accumulates, you actually put that out into the morphogenetic field of the world. So it's an act of service. Each time you're dissolving fears within yourself, it's an act of service to the world. So thank you for listening all the way to the end, and thank you for participating in the dissolving of your fears.